Welcome to this full council meeting, Wednesday, 24th of April. We have a full attendance. I see we have Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins online. Welcome, Erin, and welcome all our staff and public. We have no known apologies, so there's no need to have a mover of that one. Confirmation of the agenda. Can I have a mover for that, please? So, Rachel, and seconded by Howard. Put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Conflict of interest. Are there any conflict of interest to declare today? No. There are no public forum today. No one's put their hand up at the public forum. Confirm the open minutes from the extraordinary council meeting 3rd of April. Can I have a favour for that, please? Councillor Howard, and a seconder. Councillor Nair. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Carried. So we move on to 4.1 of the agenda, which is the Alcohol Control Bylaw 2018 Statement of Proposal. Now, presenting this to us is Virginia Smith. Is Virginia online or is she absent?
Through the chair, Virginia is supposed to be here.
Okay,
Probably didn't know it would be at 1 minute past 10.
I think this is pretty surprising.
yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think if you can, this has been through you before a few times. What you're doing is adopting the statement of proposals provided in attachment A, and there's a bunch of technical recommendations there that you need to approve to say that the bylaw is the appropriate mechanism. And so if you agree that, the only thing you will have to do here when you move it is insert elected members' names and identify which elected member is a chair to form the panel to hear the matters. So if you could do that at the same time you're moving it, that would be great.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Morris, what are the drivers for us to spend ratepayers' money on exercises in amending? Because I went through this, there are so many backtracking, so many things, words, a lot of wordsmith done in this policy. What we are trying to achieve, were there any complaints from the constituents on the current alcohol policy?
So this is just a normal, so through you, Mr. Mayor, this is just a normal part of our business and the regulatory part of council. We have bylaws that we need to review statutorily by certain timeframes. We used to have a consolidated bylaw. We've split that up to make it easier for the public. And this is just part of the normal process where we have to review a bylaw and go through that process. We are statutorily required to have them. So I think I don't know if I'm answering your question, Councillor Nair, but it is just a normal part of council's business to have bylaws in place.
All I'm trying to ask is why we are tampering with a policy which is nationally accepted, and what we are trying to achieve.
The recommendation is to keep the current one.
Can I just interfere here? Let's leave this to a process. We can have a discussion through the process, okay?
Sorry.
So I'd like to move this motion and I'd like to nominate Howard, Lambert and Vincent for that role on the alcohol control bylaw. Are there any objections to those members? Because I haven't.
I've got a question. Am I under conflict being on the licensing committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Maris?
I actually think no, on the outset, because you got information being on the licensing committee that would add value to this topic.
No.
I just needed to raise it. To be considered, that's all.
Mr. Mayor, with your panel, you need to identify which one will chair it as well.
Actually, because of his knowledge on the subject, I would like Councillor Lambert to chair it. Can I have a seconder?
I'll speak to that.
Councillor Larson.
Sorry, through the chair, could I just get the third? I've got councillor Lambeth as chair, councillor Howard, and who is the third?
Vincent.
Councillor Vincent.
As a former committee member, the two councils.
We do have Virginia, the report writer joining now, if you.
Sure, okay, but bring her in, that'd be good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Virginia. So we've just we're in a second, we've got the panel proposed. Could you just spend a couple of minutes outlining your report?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. Good morning, elected members. Council made the alcohol control bylaw in 2018 on the 19th of December 2018 under section 147 of the Local Government Act. At the 13th of December 2003 council meeting, council completed a statutory review of the bylaw and proposed amendments to improve public understanding and accessibility. Staff have now finalised an amended draft bylaw based on decisions of council. The proposed amendments are minor in nature and do not change the content or affect the implementation of it. The proposed amendments can be found on the pages 2 and 3 of the agenda report. Before making a final decision, council must consult on the proposal in accordance with the requirements of the LGA, determine the amended bylaw meets the legislative requirements, criteria, and decide on any bylaw amendment after having considered public feedback. These are addressed in attachment C of the agenda report. To meet the statutory consultation requirements, staff propose to use a special consultative procedure under section 83 of the Local Government Act and adopting a statement of proposal. That includes the proposed amended bylaw for public consultation. The council can choose to adopt a summary of information contained in the SOP or statement of proposal to assist the public in understanding. However, due to the nature of the proposed changes, staff recommend that such a summary is not necessary. I received a question from Councillor Vincent, and if elected members are happy for me to address that now, I will.
Thank you, Virginia.
The question sent through by Councillor Vincent was what was the current legislative regime and if there's any evidence that it is reducing harm related to alcohol use and abuse in society. And whereabouts our bylaw sits in that wider context. It's a big beast, it's a big beast, I'm not going to lie, so I'm just going to quickly go over it. The current legislative regime spans many statutes, so we've got from the Custom and Excise Tax Act 2018 to the Sale and Supply of Alcohol, which is our main one, the Health Act 1956 through to our Local Government Act. So it's a massive legislative regime. The multifaceted legislative approach has resulted really in a main 8-prong policy approach that's been done through many agencies, local governments, right down to our community groups, as we all know. Evidence supports that this approach has been successful. However, across the board, it's been identified that major changes to the excise and customs and excise tax to increase the price of alcohol would have a better effect. However, that's outside of the bylaw's scope. The bylaw actually sits in as a secondary legislative mechanism, and that's done underneath the Local Government Act. The other one that we don't currently have, and that's because we've been watching other councils struggle to get through with their local alcohol policies underneath the Sale and Supply Act. So those two teamed together can restrict the hours of sale and also to the density of liquor outlets in your communities. So that's the local alcohol policy made underneath the Sale and Supply that we don't have. Whereas the bylaw itself, it cuts out the visibility, the glamour of drinking in public places. That's what the bylaw controls, and so that's where it sort of comes through and fits into that bigger legislative regime. Yeah, so is there evidence? Yes, there is evidence. However, the ones for the local alcohol policy, I've been having difficulty trying to find evidence to support that that's been successful. It's been in place. They had the ability since 2014 to make local alcohol policies. However, they didn't have any teeth, any regulatory teeth. So in 2017, an amendment was made to give them some more teeth. However, then we saw big brewery companies, big lobbyists taking councils to court over their proposed local alcohol policies, which is why we've been just watching that space and seeing how that goes. I hope that answered your question, Councillor Vincent.
Oh, well, thank you, Virginia. I guess I'm a bit of a cynic as to the effectiveness of the regime, and it's possibly just added more cost for people to do the same thing as they were used to do. But I live in hope, because there are limits to how far it can go in TV success. But you have highlighted some aspects there which gives you a bit of reassurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Virginia? Councillor Nair?
Thank you, Chair. Virginia, I just had a question on the very fact of, I know it's a statutory requirement to look at the policy, but why to amend it at great cost and opening ourselves to legal challenges, as you mentioned, with the wordsmithing? I even noticed that one of the comment was changing from consumption in the car to inside the car. I don't know what we're going to achieve by making so kind of things. And we are not liars, and you take legal opinion, so much money wasted. What we are trying to achieve?
What we're trying to achieve with the bylaw is this is our only mechanism to stop drinking in public places that council has. So if we can remember back to our smoke-free policy, this is more or less exactly the same. It provides the police a proactive approach to curb any alcohol harm before it happens in public places. So the bylaw itself is our only mechanism that enables us and our communities to say, hey, drinking is a real issue. It's been creating harm in this community, and we would like council to put alcohol restrictions over that place and have the police enforce it. So it's a lot like our smoking policy, where we provide the platform, we provide the mechanisms to ensure that police can regulate that space in a proactive way.
Just a corollary to that, what I'm trying to achieve, Virginia, is that have we failed to achieve that the cops are incapable to stop someone under the current bylaw? And will it give more power to them if we amend this policy and put a panel at great cost to councillors and ratepayers? Thank you.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Well, some of the changes are legislative changes. So we are aligning our bylaw. So we're updating our bylaw to align with those legislative changes, which is a requirement. So that amendment has to happen. The other thing as well is it doesn't give the police any more powers than it already does underneath the current bylaw. What we're doing, if you see the amendments that we're changing, we're proposing to change, is that we had clauses separated out from themselves where they should have been together to make it a bit more comprehensible for public use. Even when I was reading it, I got a bit confused as why they had been separated the way that they had been. It didn't provide continuity of understanding of the bylaw, which makes it harder for people to understand and effectively use. I noticed that in some conversations that I had with people, they didn't actually understand that they could put up places to council and ask council to put these things through from a community level, which is really what it's about, providing community voice. And that's why I'm proposed these changes. And I understand the cost that you're going on about, Councillor Nair. However, in the wider scheme of things, we'll be educating the public at the same time as we're doing the consultation. And for me, that's a win-win situation for our district as a whole, because everyone can understand how to get places put underneath, how to get alcohol restrictions put on areas and etc.
Thank you.
Thank you. See, Merritt, you want to say?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Virginia. And I just want to caution Councillor Nair in that, you know, what you say and what you seem to believe is a waste of money is not, and that's outlined by Virginia today. This is a regulatory tool that the police use. We need to get it right. We need to make sure it's clear, and we're improving that through this review that we have to do every few years. So please don't think it is a waste of money. It's an important tool that the police use to look after the safety of our communities, and it's a necessary step that councils have to go through as well.
Thank you for clarifying that. Anyone else would like to ask any questions of Virginia? Thank you, Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Virginia, to me, this regulation seems to come from an after the fact situation, i.e. we're trying to control what people can do with alcohol that they've already acquired. Now, if I heard correctly in your initial address, you mentioned something about control of licensed premises from which alcohol can be purchased. So is there anything in, I mean, I don't read anything in this about the actual number of controls that we can have on alcohol outlets. But would you like to comment further on that?
Okay, so yes, so what you're talking about there, Councillor, and apologies if I've confused elected members, is the local alcohol policy. That one there is made underneath the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act. It gives councils the ability to regulate the density of outlets, alcohol, liquor, alcohol shops in their communities. We don't have that, and that is totally separate from the bylaw that we're discussing today. It was only because that forms part of that wider legislative regime that Councillor Vincent wanted me to address in his question.
Okay, so just to be clear, you say we don't have a bylaw to do with the purchase of alcohol outlets, the licensing thereof. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We don't have the policy, the local alcohol policy, which is under a separate piece of legislation. This one here, we have a bylaw that regulates that. Yes, yep.
Okay. All right. I guess I'm wondering why both might not be reviewed at the same time.
We don't have the other.
Because
We don't have a local alcohol policy.
We don't. Okay. Well, maybe we should.
We need to spend money.
Okay, any further questions of Virginia? All right, thank you, Virginia.
thank you.
Hoover's statement, I think we've had some good discussion there, and I'm happy with that. Seconded statement, Councillor Larson. Any elected members wish to speak?
I'd like to speak.
Councillor Lambert, followed by Councillor Nair.
Thank you.
Back in the dark ages in the early 90s, I was that soldier that went and took a liquor bylaw to the council as a young constable, because matters have got out of control. And it's more of a prevention tool rather than a penalty or an enforcement tool. It allowed the police to control the amount of consumption of alcohol that was in public places, which there were no laws forbidding that consumption. And before things got out of control too much with gatherings in public places, and as a consequence, it spread throughout the country to what I believe is a situation which is far improved on what it was 3 decades ago. The local policy is a hugely expensive matter to go through, and subject ourselves to the likes of the powers of Countdown and the big multinationals who will attack it. The licensing committee deal with these on an individual basis when they're brought before us for hearings. So that's how we deal with it in this district. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Nair.
Thank you, Chair. I'm more a functional person, so my concern, as I stated earlier, is not to spend people money to reword, which is the policy or Bible of the central government, and the council doesn't have the wherewithal to spend money with legal consultation and choosing of words, which is unnecessary. In some cases, can be challenged, as Virginia pointed out by some of the council. So I think there is no need to go into uncharted territories when we are not achieving anything out of it. So I would like to vote against it, having a panel. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Nair. Any further? Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, well, my understanding is that we have our bylaw because it is the Kaipara District Council's bylaw, and it sits within a framework created by central government under the liquor licensing legislation. And it is our chance to apply our local flavour in terms of nominating places where it applies and where it doesn't apply. And I think this is very much just a process thing. And as I commented earlier when I was asking my question, I'm cynical about how much the new legislative regime is achieving because it doesn't touch the important things which could make a difference. However, we've got this and we need to review it, and I endorse this approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to make a statement? Okay. Movers right to reply. I'm not going to make any further reply. All those in favour, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.
Yes, recorded. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the expenditure policy adoption. Jessie Allen, is she? Yep, thank you, Jessie from staff. Take us through this. Can I have a mover for this first, please? Councillor Nair, a seconder. Councillor Vincent, thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
Morning, councillors. So we are presenting here in this report the sensitive expenditure policy for council to adopt today. Previously, this policy has been a corporate policy adopted by our executive team as it is largely operational. However, this is coming to council now to adopt following feedback from the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee in consideration of the high importance and potential for public interest in the policy. So the policy has been reviewed by staff already as part of its 3-yearly review, and staff proposed changes are discussed in your report, shown in the attachments to the report. Prior to coming to council today, the policy review has been presented to Audit, Risk and Finance already, and their feedback has been incorporated. The purpose of the policy is to mitigate the risk of incorrect spending on costs that have the potential to be perceived as giving a personal benefit. And as our council is funded largely by the rate-paying public, we have a responsibility to ensure proper and prudent spending of the money. The changes staff have made to the policy are just to simplify the policy by removing repetitions of separate standalone policies and instead reference those. We've also tightened travel and meal expenditure guidance and streamlined the policy by deleting repetitive wording. So assuming you adopt the policy today, we will take steps to update our policy registers and website. And we have had one question submitted by Councillor Vincent around paragraph 8.1b, where it says overseas travel shall be approved by the CE. And he is asking if it is better to state that overseas travel will require the approval of the CE. So the answer to that question is that we can do it. It's but the entire policy would need a bit of tweaking then, because the directional language shall is used in virtually every paragraph. So we'd prefer to just leave it as it is, but just to keep things consistent, really. So are there any other questions or further questions on the policy today?
Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, my question is, there's a lot of deletion. I went through the policy and rather looking in the merit of the deletion or addition or wordsmithing. I would like to know what any issues experienced in the last term because of this policy. Don't have to be specific, but to give us a driver to spend time and money on looking at this policy again.
Okay, so we are required to look at the policy every 3 years. And the driver for me is that I'm new in the role. So it was our finance team is responsible to basically control this. We are the ones that can make sure this stuff happens properly. So it was in personal interest, really. And the policy itself had been unchanged for a very long time. It used to be not sit with the finance team as the policy owner. So took the opportunity to just have a really intense look at our internal controls and make sure that we are doing what we are saying. I couldn't find that we were doing anything wrong, but I just found that the policy itself was very wordy, and it had a lot of other policies rewritten inside of the policy. So when those separate policies, like around our staff gifts or our cars or vehicle use, were changed, then you would also have to change this policy. So it's just trying to make it a bit easier to read. The actual purpose of what the policy is there to do, to make sure we don't just spend ratepayer money on things we shouldn't, is not being changed. Just making it easier.
See, Maris, you have something to add?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, thank you. I mean, you will see in the Audit Risk and Finance Committee, it's best practice that we update our policies on a regular basis, and that gets reported through to that committee. This is part of that work. It's a really important policy, actually, and it's really important that our staff understand this policy and know where the limits are. We do live to those limits, and the last point I make is when we have our annual report audited, so our audit with our auditors for the annual report, this is the first policy they go to, and they go through all claims, a subsection of the claims, to make sure that we adhere to this policy. Because obviously some of this stuff is quite sensitive. It's why it's called the Sensitive Expenditure Policy, and can affect reputation in the community as well. So it's a really key policy, and it's best practice to update it.
Yeah, and so for example, in the report I talked about the fact that we've sort of made stricter the travel policy around overseas travel and meal allowances. I just wanted to point out that we actually haven't been authorising payments for overseas travel. That's not been something that we've done in any recent history. It was just to make it really clear that we wouldn't do that unless there was a really good reason. So it's not like there's been trips overseas, essentially, if that's what you were wanting to know, Councillor Nair.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Jesse. Move a statement, Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've been 42 years in the corporate world with 3 banks in New Zealand and 1 multinational bank. Sensitive expenditure policy is in every organization, and I didn't come across one instance of fiddling with it unless there is a complaint on this. Any policy is fraught with dangers when you fiddle with it. While you're trying to make it simpler, it is opening a can worm or worm of cans to legal challenges. So I actually don't, while I think it is probably good to take keeping the essence and taking the things out of it to make it wordy, it is very dangerous. So I'm actually not in favor of tickling or tinkling with any policy whatsoever, unless there are need for it. Thank you.
Councillor Vincent.
Can I just process clarification there? Councillor Nair moved the motion.
Yes.
And he just spoke against it?
Yes. It's an afterthought.
I'm having trouble processing that. Do I have some advice?
Councillor So am I, but it's not unpermitted.
No, it's through you, Mr Mayor. It's perfectly okay to.
Okay, so let's move on. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you. Okay, well, just for a change, I think there was a motion, I will speak in support of it. And I get, my first comment is that this has already been reviewed by the Audit and Risk Committee, and I don't want to do their job for them. However, I would point out, I think there was merit in the question that I raised in terms of the approach, but it might be just my overly pedantic brain thinking that the wording in there being directive suggests that the CE has no discretion to decline a request for expenditure on something such as overseas travel. So that was my motivation, to make it clear where the discretion lay. However, that aside, my other comment too, in terms of the importance of the policy itself, is that not only must we do the right thing, we must do it the right way, and for it to be demonstrable that we do. And this policy is one of those reference points that we can use to explain how and why we did what we did, to justify it. We need to be able to justify ourselves. So thank you.
Councillor Larson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I concur with the point made by Councillor Vincent, and that sentence is grammatically incorrect, and that it represents something other than what it intends to. I disagree with the reporting officer because it's a particular problem to change it. And in that instance, I think that it should be changed to what council has suggested via Part V of the resolution as a minor change.
Yeah, that's not significant. I don't think.
Right. Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Paniora.
Thank you for the chair. I'll just have my 5 cents. So the first thing that in interpreting any clauses, you would look to the policy statement, which clearly says that any standards of probity and financial prudence would be expected. So that clause is to be read in light of the first clauses, and to find a middle ground, because I understand that the word shall is throughout, and it is important to keep it consistent. So to ensure that there's an objective standard, that it could be shall either decide to approve or disapprove the spending. Is probably a better middle ground for that. And it's always good to tighten things up in this moving world and make sure that it's fit for purpose. Just because there's things in there like overseas travel doesn't mean that would ever eventuate in future, but it is good to have all possible scenarios captured in a policy, because otherwise it's probably even worse to consider overseas expenditure if there's not actually anything within the policy that says, and then that actually gives more discretion to allow it to be approved. So the fact that that's in there shouldn't be anything to be worried about. Yeah, and so this has gone through the committee, and I'm happy to approve that as well, that motion.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yeah, I just thought that, Councillor Howard was.
Yep.
Councillor.
I was a bit slow. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I just endorse the recommendation that made through Audit, Risk and Finance, and that was gone through in a fairly robust manner. And I mean, I think that this is at the essence, has been explained by the CE, of our transparency, and it doesn't hurt to refresh and to keep all relevant points really up to date. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? I believe it's right to reply, Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Chair. Well, take all the words or expressions for interest on this policy mentioned. There are 67 councils in the country. Everyone is having their go every 3-year term, fiddling with the policy. I would rather do some real stuff for the constituent rather than getting into, we are not lawyers. We are coming from different backgrounds. I think this should be the last thing. And maybe the Minister Simeon Brown, if he's listening, should have one policy for all 67 councils. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll be voting against it.
Okay. In favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against.
Those against,
Aye.
motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the revocation of private road seal extension policy. CE Maris will be talking to this. Can I have a mover first, please? Councillor Lambeth, seconder. Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, Council. You're stuck with me today. Unfortunately, our staff member reporting officer is not available today. This has been to you at the 1st of November briefing and the 20th of March briefing. We believe there are issues with the current policy. It is essentially a targeted rate, and there are legal issues around the thresholds implementing targeted rates when there are those that are affected by that and the thresholds involved. We have done some work around New Zealand with other councils to see what options there are out there. There's only one other council that does it based on the targeted rate, and they're looking to do the same thing that we're proposing you do today. There are 3 other private road seal extension policies that we have found where the community is required to pay at least 50%, sometimes 100% contribution of those policies as well. In accordance with the information we provided you at the 2 briefings, we think the best possibility or the best outcome here is to remove the community expectation of this as a policy, revoke it now, and then immediately get on to do some work about what could replace it to best suit the community in the space. And so that's what the recommendation is in front of you today. If you agree with that today, that's fine. Then we will go on to do this extra work with you, and there might be other opportunities and other ways to help the communities out in this space. So over to you.
Thank you. Any questions for Jason? Councillor Naya.
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Morris, you've given us 2 options. Revoke the private road seal extension policy and recommend it. And option 2, request the staff to urgently draft proposed amendment to the policy. You haven't given an option to not do anything with the policy.
The state's through you, Mr Mayor. Status quo is an option, but if you don't vote for the revocation, then it is effectively the status quo.
But it should be mentioned in the option.
Thank you for your feedback.
A matter of course.
Sorry?
That happens if it's.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
I did have one.
Sorry, you did. Councillor Howard, apologies. So you asked the question, are we potentially saying that only the sealing element will come under this policy and any formation of roading will still be the role of council? So this effectively just revokes the policy. That's all it does. The roading aspect still lies with council and the responsibility of such does, so it doesn't change that.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
No, that's right.
So it specifically deals with sealing?
Just the policy, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any further questions of Jason? Okay, movers statement, Councillor Lambeth.
Yes, I'll be very brief, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Mr Maris has said it all. In these times, it's very much a moving target and it's something that's got to be looked at again in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with what's been said, and no point having something that is not going to be operative. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other elected members wish to speak? Councillor Paniora, followed by Councillor Ash.
Yeah, I just wanted to concur with what's been said. I did raise this previously when we had a discussion in our briefing around the legalities of it and requiring, certain people that may not be in agreement with the upgrades as to whether there's it's legal to even require them to pay that. So if we do, if this revocation goes through, I would like to see some legal input from our lawyer around any, legal issues and risks, judicial reviews and things like that, on the recommended option so that we can, consider the risks, going forward a bit further, because it's a bit up in the air at the moment as to what, this may be replaced with, if at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Chair. Again, as a first-time councillor, it's quite hard for me to swallow that we are trying to reinvent the wheel and 67 councils are probably doing it wrong. And Mr. Simeon Brown is not listening. We need one private seal policy for the whole country. Why we are wasting time on devising something open to legal challenges? In 3-year term, we should be doing something better than that. So I will be voting against. Thank you.
Any other members wish to speak? Councillor Rachel Williams.
Look, I think because this obviously needs to be updated and it's something important to the community for people who are on unsealed roads and they want some certainty around what they can actually do. I think it's the right time to look at it and look at options, definitely, so I support it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? I'll have a little say here. I totally agree with what Rachel said there. I think there's been a lot of frustration, particularly where a huge number of residents wanted to put their hand in their pocket and couldn't get their road sealed. So, and quite frankly, the lack of sealing shows that maybe we need to have a look at the policy so it's a little easier for people to participate in getting their roads done. So I look forward to seeing what we get put on the table for future meetings. Okay, movers right to reply, Councillor Lambeth.
It's very, very quickly. Just looking around, I'm probably the only one who's on unsealed roads, but would interest me the most. But look, they've got this other development with the gravel roads at present, and that's still in an experimental stage. So we've got to see how that goes. In the end, it's going to probably be something under health policies with dust that's going to change everything. So thank you.
Okay. All those in favour, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against?
Yes. Against.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, item 5.1 on the agenda, Portland Northland annual reporting, will be presented to us by Hayley, I understand. Hayley?
Through the chair, we have Port Northland representatives online.
Welcome, Port Northland representatives online. Who have we got there?
Morning, Nakoto. John Wansbone, Chief Executive, Sport Northland.
Welcome, John.
Kia ora tātou, Scott Linklater, CLM.
Welcome, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors. So you'll recall that at the February briefing, we brought Sport Northland's annual report for the Carry Coast Community Pool and also their activity report for the KDC Sport Northland Operation Grant through to you. We had a lot of questions. We've provided some more financial information and some responses specifically to some of the questions that Councillor Larson asked within this report. And so I'm going to take the report now as read. I did have a few pre-questions from Councillor Vincent and Councillor Howard. Councillor Vincent, I will start with, and then I'll hand over to the gentleman on the line. So, Councillor Vincent, you asked about the financial figures for this financial year. So this financial year ends on the 30th of June, and that report would then be completed by Sport Northland and CLM and come back to us post July, August.
Can I just clarify? Is the pool still open?
The pool is closed for the season.
So surely they would have some idea then of the actual numbers for the current year. If not financials, at least the
Okay, I'll hand over to them to give us a high level overview of what's happened this year. And then for Mike Howard, you asked
questions, councillor Howard. The first was on the history of the pool. So what was done to support the original investment when Sport Northland purchased the pool. That's not an answer that I or Sport Northland or Scott could probably give you because the pool was built and owned by a community trust. That might be something maybe Gordon might have a bit more information on. And the second question was around water safety programs and whether or not we are providing enough water safety programs through the system that CLM and Sport Northland use. And Scott's advised that that water safety program includes professional development components for teachers and that there is a broader strategy for water safety and swimming that they're implementing through their schools and pools. So from there, if there's any other further questions or you want further clarity, it's both Scott and
Councillor Paniora, followed by Councillor Ash.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't send any pre-questions in because I have quite a few comments that are dependent on the answers to my questions. So the first thing that I wanted to just say is that this is a real worry, the direction that also going in and our ability to continue to fund it, given our pressures that we have in these inflationary times. Just haven't had my morning coffee, but so we have to consider what model we're looking at into the future. There's a couple of key issues around the pools never being open, continuous issues with them. And because of the lack of confidence in the availability of the pools opening, I think that anecdotally that's a lot of the reason why we're having the reduced numbers. I also think that the funding, the ways in which the funding works and the concessions doesn't make too much sense financially for families in the area to take that up. We also have the decision as to whether to introduce a targeted rate or not, and that's because, we have Manawhai that is also contributing into the pools, which isn't completely fair on them. But we do need a way forward, and I don't think that a targeted rate is the way to go. And then the final point is if our ratepayers are paying, then they should be getting some concessions with some, if they hand over some address to show that they are ratepayers and actually paying towards the pool. If we're giving 359,000 every year and it's coming from our ratepayers, then by rights they should be getting concessions to use those pools. I just want to preface that with those are my comments. So the first question that I have is, what is the difference between the management fee that you charge of 31,000? What's the difference between that and the payroll wages that you're taking of 90,000? So can you explain what we get for our management fee and then what we get? It's pretty self-explanatory what wages are. I just want to ensure that we're not doubling up on that. So can you just explain that to me, what we get for that?
Scott, I'm just looking at you, mate. Are you able to respond in that regard?
Yes, pal.
Are you asking about the management fees that CLM do for our operation, or is it regarding?
Yep. So I'm just wondering what value we get for the management fee of 31,000 as opposed to what you're taking in wages to the tune of 170,000 a year. Cool.
So the 170,000 a year is for the staff on site. The management fees include the technical support. They also include all the license and bits and pieces for like the IT provision, the FPOST, all that sort of stuff. So that's all included in the management fee. So there's slightly different aspects, if that makes sense.
No, that doesn't make sense to me because $31,000 for an FPOST machine doesn't sound. It's an FPOST machine, so I don't know. So what else does that? So what do you mean by IT and technical support? Can you?
So the management fees include, well, the 31,000 is just the CLM management fee, right? And then there's also other fees included in that. So you've got like the marketing fee, and you've got the license, the IT fee, and all that sort of stuff. So that's the sorry.
So what marketing are you doing, and what IT is occurring?
So the marketing that was done in 2022, 2023 is all in that report. It's largely online, like sort of virtual, like social media and stuff like that. And like it's said in the report, that's sort of due to a degree to some of the budget constraints that we have. Like obviously last year we took a big hit financially. So we're trying to find the most efficient ways to deliver marketing in that space.
Yeah, okay. The second question that I have is, given it's a Northland pool that's supposed to service a lot of the schools and the carnivals and what have you, is included in that management fee you looking at funding from Northland Regional Council or any other funders to subsidise the pool, given it's a benefit to all of Taitukido and not just Dargaville and our ratepayers?
Entry into the facility for schools has been free for a number of years, and that's one of the initiatives that we've done to increase patronage, but also support water safety education and sort of access to the facility. So it doesn't cost schools to come into the pools.
No, what I'm asking you is where are you getting the money from? So if you're not charging any of the pools, any of the schools within Taitukido to use the facility, then where are you, in your funding model, where are you going, and within that management fee that we pay, who's paying for that? And have you looked to Northland Regional Council or some other funders? Because someone's got to pay for it, so who wears the cost of that? Is it our Dargaville residents if we're looking at a targeted rate in future? I guess what I'm trying to say is it fair for Dargaville ratepayers to pay for the whole of Northland schools to have entry for free into the pool but not contribute towards it? And that can't sustain itself moving forward. I would expect a management fee of that calibre to include you looking to other funding sources.
Yep, I think we'd probably possibly work with Sport Northland around funding. They're probably in a slightly better position, being a non-charitable trust, than us to provide or access funding as much. Yeah, I don't know, probably throwing it back to you a little bit there, John.
Yeah, look, we've very recently just put our submission in regarding the Northland Sporting Facilities rate. So right now we are certainly taking our concerns and aspirations to Northern Regional Council, but we don't currently receive any additional funding streams through them in response to this facility. Certainly if it was a development piece of work, it would come through the facilities rate.
Sorry, so just to clarify, John, are you saying that you've put in a submission to Northern Regional Council for funding a targeted rate to fund pools, including?
No, they've the proposal in their long-term plan is to withdraw the funding that's currently goes towards the Northland Sporting Facilities rate, which is primarily used for the development of facilities of regional significance. So that's still obviously being proposed at the moment, and we've got strong opposition to that. That's the only funding that we get direct Sport Northland receive through Northland Regional Council.
Okay, further questions?
I have.
That's a no.
Thank you, Chair. So the question is to, I don't know who's going to answer, John or Scott. There are many CLM facilities. We are not the only one, probably 20, in late 20s or 30. I don't know how many you have around the country successfully operating. So I would like to know why you can't operate, as fellow councillor Pera pointed out, it remains closed. Is it something to do with your operation, or is it to do with KDC? Do you have a representative? I guess in the advisory committee, you should have a representative from KDC have you communicated those concerns, if you have any, why you are unable to operate a facility which everybody wants to be operated, and why it remains closed and whatever? Yeah, thank you.
Through the chair, that pool is uncovered, and so it's closed throughout the winter. It's only open in the summer seasons.
Sorry?
The pool is an uncovered pool. It is only open during the summer seasons. It's closed throughout the winter.
No, so what I'm asking here is you are proposing also having the facility for reduced hours and probably cutting some staff, whilst it's already cut to the extent that people are bleeding. They can't even use the pool. So they don't even know whether it's open. So what's ailing this CLM rather than the rest of, like in Auckland? There's a different funding model for CLM in Auckland?
So the contracts vary from council to council, and obviously we've got multiple contracts across the country. I think in regards to the operation, like when we compare it to similar sites across the country, it's running as efficiently as it can, very comparable to any of the facilities that we have. I think, like highlighted in the report, the issue that we've faced over the last 5, 6, 7 years is the huge increases in our costs. So we're talking about utilities and pool chemicals and stuff like that, which is all mentioned in the report. And those are quite significant increases to our overheads, really. So other contracts we have around the country, there's increments built into it, so they often can be offset, but our contract's been sort of the same for a decade, so we sort of struggle with it.
I'd like to ask a question regarding capital expenditure on the pool. Can you tell me, is the equipment in the pool due for a major upgrade? And if it is, would those upgrades provide cheaper operational costs?
Yes, the facility is aging, and definitely it would, if it was upgraded, be much cheaper. Like we had an issue in the 2022-2023 season where the chlorine tank split, and that's yet to be replaced. And that hiked up the pool chemical cost, probably the 10K that was over budget. So we had to buy in smaller quantities, so we have paying more per litre, and that really hiked things up. So yes, it's an aging facility. There's lots of replacements that need to be done, and yes, that would decrease the operating costs.
Thank you, Councillor Lambeth.
Yeah, you're not going to get off the hook that easy, Scott. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got about 6 questions I'm going to ask, and we'll go straight to that one of the chlorine chemical tank. How much would that have cost to replace at the time?
Approximately 42K.
And the expected time when that's going to get replaced, and I'll ask Sport Northland that because they are actually managing the contract. Have we got any plan ahead, or is there just no plan?
Sorry, Councillor, I was in the middle of a coughing fit then. Can you just repeat the question?
Sorry, John. Scott has just alluded to the fact that there's a $10,000 extra expenditure every year in extra chemicals because the chlorine tank is split. And then he has stated that it's going to cost $42,000 to fix. So we're already 32 in the red, I suppose. What is your plan as Sport Northland, who is managing the contract and managing the pool, of a proposed plan to replace that?
Yeah, the Northland Aquatics plan that's referenced in the document in draft has been finalised, and in that signals the need to come back to council with discussions around potentially ownership models, and also the need to look at funding, because we've got lessons learned through examples like the Whangarei Aquatics facility, in which asset management and investment in preventative maintenance is not at the standard that perhaps it should be. Our activity around remedial work is strong, but it's not at the calibre of ensuring, it's great for short term, not for the long term. So I don't have a silver bullet for you today to advise what we've got up our sleeve. It's certainly a discussion that we need to have with council around the level of investment needed, and potentially also ownership models going forward.
So that was a very specific question I asked you, and it appears as though the simple answer was we have no plan. We're just going to muddle on how we are with the chlorine. Is that correct?
We're not in the business of managing chlorine per se, so I can't really comment specifically on that particular example. So that's where the operator is best placed to provide feedback on. But clearly pools are expensive. The costs that are going into the infrastructure, water, is just going through the roof.
Yeah, I think I can probably support that question as well. So we got the quote initially when it split. It was the 42K, but that season, and that was we were looking to do it. We had Cyclone Gabrielle, and that incurred 30 grand worth of damage, which the shade sails were replaced that last season to fix that. So that chewed up a lot of that. So we operated as best we could, and yeah, there's a bit of, how would you say it, a bottleneck of things that need to be done now. So that's the sort of challenge that we have. We've got, like I said, that we've got a aging facility. A lot of things are needing to be done. I think we highlighted in a report that it's more than the current spend, but yeah, I don't know if that answers your question anymore, Gordon, but yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I do note that the shade sails are covered under insurance, so that's going to... Right, I'm going to ask another specific question to Sport Northland. What promotional activities have you undertaken? Because that was the condition of taking over this facility, that you were going to promote it. Now, I'm looking at the thing, and I think there's $233.90 that you spent on promotional stuff out of the fee that you've taken. Is that correct?
I will need to just validate. It's just a background. I'm 8 weeks in the job as the new chief executive, taking over from Brent Eastwood. So I don't have all the detail at hand today. So I will take away some comments. In terms of operational marketing, is that what you're referring to as well? Perhaps, Scott, you can provide any advice on that?
Yes, just what promotion you've done through Sport Northland of the pool itself. Okay, we'll move on. Supervision standards. There's been a lot of criticism of the cleanliness, the running of the pool, as the trust overlooking the contract. What supervisory reports, what visits has Sport Northland done to the pool over the season? Considering that you have put in your report that you've probably got 5 staff working in the area, do they do a sheet where they report on the standard and operating functions of the pool?
So just in terms of those 5 staff they're alluding to, that's our broader program of work, not specifically to the pool. What I can speak to, and actually, Scott, you might be able to offer more, is around the group that we've got in place, the committee that oversees, I've forgotten the name of the group, it's a steering group comprising community members, council members, and also Sport Northland and CLM. I personally haven't attended an event yet, but Scott, if you can provide any advice on that.
Yep. So generally, Stu, who would have normally been here, he visits the site on a monthly basis. We also have the advisory committee that's in place that meets, depends on the year, but generally meets 2 to 3 times a year throughout the season. So that's every couple of months. Yeah.
The third question I've got, the reason for the report being so late, John?
I think this was submitted a couple of meetings ago, and it's been brought back to the agenda, so it's not late as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, and through the chair, Sport Northland provided their report through to us in late August as per the requirement, but they had to wait some time for CLM financials to come through. So
I didn't want the financials, and they sent through in February this report. I was wanting the specific financials. I can't make heads or tails of any of the figures. That actually the figures don't even add up on the spreadsheet. So.
Question number 5 I've got for you, John. What sort of advertising have you gone, or extra income have you got, or promotional work have you done among swimming squads? I noticed that advertising walls were pulled down. Have we done anything along that line, or have you just thinking, is there anything like that?
Are we talking through swimming clubs? Are we talking just?
I'm just talking any extra income that you've tried to promote and get through other means.
And utilising the facility. Scott,
Yes,
that's probably a question for Scott. Have you got any comments you can share?
oh, no, not really. It was a question.
Again, apologies. I'm literally 2 months into the saddle and I haven't got all of the detail at hand. Apologies for that.
Okay.
Councillor Nair, then followed by Councillor Paniwara.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously I didn't get one answer. I was talking or asking about the advisory group which you have made with one KDC representative, and we haven't got any information either from KDC or from you in terms of any issues there. My question, specific second one, and hopefully you'll answer the first one anyway, is $52,000 on water rates. Is apart from the pouring tank being split, is there any underground pipe is split that there's water leakage? Because a lot of constituents told me that the pool water has been leaking for donkey years. Can you be more technically specific on it? Why is $52,000 when it's closed and most of the time in terms of the rates, water rates? Yeah, thank you.
We're unsure. We've had heaps of contractors in to check whether there's a leak in the pool. We've found through operating it that we believe there could be, but probably some pretty drastic exploration needs to be done in the off season to check that. But we've had, multiple local and people from Auckland coming in and checking, doing investigations to see whether they can do it. There's nothing above ground that's leaking that we're aware of that's causing an issue. If it is, it's subterranean, and a further investigation needs to be probably done there.
Well, sorry, just to say that if the water leakage and the bill goes 3 times in my household, I will be contacting KDC. So you haven't done anything on that front to get it checked?
Well, the readings on our side say it wasn't leaking. So we were only alerted to the fact that the bill had gone up, which instigated the investigations. But on our side, all our readings that we're taking on a daily basis were saying that we're tracking per normal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paniwara.
No, I'll take it.
Any further questions? Councillor Howard, followed by Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John, your report talks about the the 3 pools that you effectively operate. Can you just let us understand how well the other 2 are tracking relative to our pool and Dargaville?
Look, I think it's fair to say that the Kauri Coast pool is not performing as well as the other 2. They've each got their own issues regarding ageing facilities and additional investment costs. But Scott, you can speak to Whangarei Aquatics facility. Bay of Islands, much smaller facility, significant costs this year with regarding roofing. It's a facility with a roof over the top. But they are much smaller facilities in the Whangarei Aquatics facility, which is going okay from our perspective.
Okay, just an extension, and an extension to my one of my questions is that I know perhaps the pleasing aspect is that whilst we've gone from 26,000 users 3 years ago to 16,000, the major difference has been a reduction of 10,000 in unpaid entry. Now, I'm reading that from what has been said already, that's to do with schools. And I still suggest that in my experience, albeit many years ago, that 3 lessons for school kids over the whole effective 5-month operational period, of which 6 weeks is taken out by school holidays. But even that is not sufficient usage for kids to learn and get confidence with swimming. So it does seem to me that there is an underutilisation from that aspect. But more to the nub of the situation, should we be expecting a really in-depth, hard-hitting review by Sport Northland as to the real viability of this pool moving forward? Because, it doesn't take long right now to add up $1 million over probably even less than 3 years. Are we better to be looking at other investment options for that money?
Yeah, good questions, and just responding in reverse order. So the latter comments about a full review, that's exactly what we need to do to understand that actually years gone by of funding and investing in remedial maintenance is not adequate enough, and we need to get an absolute picture. So that is a recommendation that's come through the Northland Aquatics Plan, and that work will be undertaken this year. And then the findings from that, obviously, we bring back to you to determine future state. Clearly, I appreciate that there are significant financial restraints across the board, and that is significant. But, I'll also stand here today, if you need me to, and speak highly about the social and health benefits that why a facility such as this is so important to the people of Kaipara. Just a couple of comments too on your earlier remarks regarding 26,000 dropped down to 16,000. I note that Scott in his reports highlighted some pretty important things to remember. We did have Gabrielle, which forced a closure for over 7 days. You'll also recall, I don't remember getting a suntan last summer, so we weren't really have conducive weather to actually see growth in numbers. And just to comment on the Water Safe program, I think Scott mentioned this at the beginning. It was a delivery of 3 full comprehensive programs to schools and teachers. So those teachers are undertaking professional development, a bit like a train-the-trainer program. So whilst we delivered 3 programs and developed our teaching workforce to deliver programs itself, that doesn't mean that the kids themselves only had three lessons themselves. We don't have data, though, that I can articulate today that describes what number of lessons that those schools have had. But we've got over 100 odd teachers went through training so they could facilitate classes themselves.
Okay, and appreciate that, and then appreciate your comments about the overall number, John. The point that I was making there is that actually our paid attendance, despite the lack of sunshine and Gabriel, our paid attendance has actually tracked very consistently. Only varied 1,000 over those 3 years. It is our free, paid attendance that has dropped. Now, one could surmise all sorts of reasons for that, but I think that we can talk about the weather, we can talk about Gabriel's and things like that, but people are still paying. And it seems to me that the major gap is that, we haven't been able to grow that paid attendance.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Vincent?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm following on the same line, kind of. It just occurred to me, sorry not to provide advance warning, but just thinking back, it would have been really great at the time the pool was handed over, if it was handed over with what we call in local government an asset management plan, which would have set out upcoming costs programmed over the next 20 years to ensure, or 30 years to ensure the continued viability of the pool. Is there such a thing in existence now for any of the pools in Northland which you're responsible for?
So 100% agree with your comment. That would have been highly advantageous if that occurred. The review that's just been undertaken in Whangarei Aquatics facilities highlights And so we haven't got similar reviews across the others, but similar. It highlights the necessity for much more significant asset management. These are significant infrastructure, and you compare it to other sectors. I come from a health background, electricity background, and you've got far more in-depth asset management practices.
Yeah, because it seems like we're just bobbing along from year to year and having unexpected surprises of a negative kind. And
short term okay, and long term it just it's not going to be viable.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So just through the chair, just to confirm that Kaipara District Council supports Port Northland through two separate grants. The first is a contract for service that's $26,000 per year for 3 years, which expires on the 30th of June this year. So we'll be working with Sport Northland to work out what we do going forward from there. And additionally, next year, the Carry Coast Community Pool operating grant agreement ends on the 30th of June 2025. So we will continue to work with Sport Northland and review and come back. And additionally to that, as John confirmed, that the Northland aquatics facilities, strategic aquatic facilities, am I making that up?
Yep.
Strategic review into aquatic facilities. We'll bring that to a briefing so you can see what that looks like for the entire of Te Tai Tokoro and how the facilities are sort of mapped out and where the investment is required.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Sorry, just a clarification. I have not been answered. I asked times, do we have a KDC representative in the advisory group of yours as originally framed to have? Or are we missing someone in terms of communication channel? Can someone answer it, Mr. Morris?
We've got one of our staff members that attends that meeting on a quarterly or biannual basis.
Dargaville?
Yeah, they're a strategic planner. Yeah.
Are they?
They are from Dargaville, yes.
And there's no comment. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we've come to the end of questioning. Thank you very much, staff. Before we move forward, I need to have a mover and a seconder for this. We've got a mover to note this report. Councillor Howard, got a seconder?
I can second.
Councillor Nair. Okay, so mover's statement would be Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As with these facilities, it's a travesty when we don't get the utilisation and the costs mount and capital expenditure is on the horizon, perhaps not accounted for. So there is a gathering storm. I guess we have to look to the team at Sport Northland to provide us the right information.
You got your hand up on process?
Just a procedural question. Sorry to interrupt, Councillor Howard, just with regard to the external officers. What I've noticed is that elected members tend to start addressing their speeches to the officers if they're left online on the screen, where they should probably be addressing it to the chair.
Yeah, okay. So the officers
stand down.
Stand down. Okay. I think I did say that, but anyway, thank you.
So, it is a dilemma that not only the Kaipara District Council is facing and many other councils are facing, and particularly the value that we see the outcome every year and the number of deaths and the unfortunate thing with not just young kids, but of all ages, through the inability of people to swim. So I hate to contemplate the potential that we have on a financial basis of maybe not having a pool such as this one in the future. But, I guess that is something that we're going to have to address in coming months, years, and be hopeful that there is a magic solution out there.
Thank you. Statement, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually been thinking otherwise. Dargaville started this pool with great fanfare, and I'm struggling to understand why can't we maintain a nice Olympic-sized pool as it was originally planned, while we are looking, and I should say west, by having a swimming pool in Mangawhai. So on the same basis, what is the surety that it will be well managed here if it can't be well managed for 10 years in Dagabay? So I'm looking forward to solutions, not closing the pool, but doing a better job and giving some service to someone who deserves. There are quite a few users. So we should work together to make the things work with Sport Northland. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other elected members wish to speak?
Yeah, I wish to speak.
Councillor Paniwan, followed by Councillor Lambeth.
Thank you through the chair. I concur. I don't think that we need to go to the nuclear option of closing the pool. I think that there's some definite opportunities and solutions out there. I have a raft and a range of solutions myself that could make a huge difference in ensuring that both it's kept open, it's managed better, and there's less of a cost to our ratepayers at a time when they just can't withstand all of the increases that they're facing, and it would have the potential to cripple them if we look at a targeted rate as well. So I'm very much opposed to that targeted rate option as well. So we need to act as quickly as we can. We only have until October next year to push a lot of these things through and not leave it for the next council, and I'm keen to help and support with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak? Councillor Lambeth.
Yeah, I could go on for hours, but I'm not going to. I just need to clear up a few myths. The pool's not leaking. They have they do tests every year throughout the year and check the iron content inside the pool and the chlorine content on the earth outside. So, and that clears it. It isn't. It's generation. What we've got to be very, very careful of is a lot of rumours that start and they go around and around and around. And I could answer all these for years, but the other aspect, and especially to speak to Councillor Vincent's concerns, was that the council and the chief executive at the time, at the construction of the pool and the operation for the first few years of the pool, did not factor in a maintenance budget, and that was going to be covered by the council, and that was the guarantee. Also, the other aspect of the water was meant to be obtained from somewhere else because of the filtration system it has. It doesn't need potable drinking water. But in the last ditch effort, a cheaper option was taken to use the council water, and then it consequently started getting charged to it. So there's a whole, what I'm just trying to highlight, I can go through with dozens of other examples of the history of it, but we've got to this situation now. It's a little bit of a mess, and we've got to sort it out. I will just say one thing. When I go down to the pool there, I'm not going to mention his name. I'll just refer to this young boy as H, and he was quite an obese young chap, but every day he'd get there and he would do 300 bombs in that pool. He'd get up out of the water and he'd jump up there. And I just used to look at him and I go, wow, what would you have done if this pool wasn't here? And there are a lot of kids like that there. That is a major, major centre of their physical activity and well-being through the summer months. And that's what we're here to provide as a council, as a facility for our ratepayers. So I'd just like to consider that. And but we've got to work something out. We've got to get this sorted. I was a little bit disappointed of the lack of interest and answers I got from our guests this morning. That would probably indicate their enthusiasm for it. And I'll leave it at that.
Any further comments? Okay, Councillor Howard, your move a right of reply.
Nothing further to add. I think it's been well covered.
Okay, let's move it to the vote. All those in favour to note this report, raise their hand, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Look, I'd like a 5-minute break for a stop.
11:30?
11:30 back. Reconvening this ARPA meetings of April. Next on the agenda is 5.2, debt refinancing. We have Julia here to present this to the council. Can I have a noting report? Can I have a mover for this, please?
I can move, sir.
Now I have seconded councillor Howard. I just want to check if councillor Lambert is okay.
Your worship and elected members, called Julia Aho. I present to you a paper explaining the recent refinancing activity that was aimed at or in compliance with our Treasury policy. It's mostly for information only, updating you on our approach and confirming that we are now complying with our Treasury policy. We've been operating outside of policy with the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee's approval since April 2022. And this is mostly due to Three Waters reform, where our assets and debt related to Three Waters are going to transfer to Entity A on 1 July 2024. We've been out of policy as we were waiting to see what was going to happen with Three Waters before refinancing any debt that was maturing. The LGFA were made aware of this, that we would not be complying with their financial covenants in line with clause 7.5 of the trust deed. In fact, many councils were in the same boat as us because of Three Waters, so we weren't alone. A question from Councillor Vincent asked why we have to do pre-funding. As Three Waters reform has now been repealed and the water assets and debt are to remain with council, there's no excuse for us not to realign with our financial governance and Treasury policy. Out of policy means that we had too much debt in the short and medium term compared to what our policy dictates. So we were running at 70% of our debt in the 0 to 3 year period, but policy stated a maximum of 60%. Following the advice from council's Treasury advisors, PwC, we participated in the March 2024 tender with LGFA. We refinanced $7 million of debt. It's maturing, or it did mature on the 15th of April. It's now maturing in 2028. And we pre-funded $10 million of debt that is due to mature in October. And it's now maturing in 2029 and 2030. Pre-funding means taking out that $10 million in a loan, investing it for 7 months, and then using it to pay for the loan that is maturing in October. It's currently sitting in a BNZ term deposit. The ARPA committee had many questions, but agreed with PwC's proposals for refinancing, that we've taken out the debt now in advance of the unknown October market conditions and obtained certainty through to 2029, 2030. This being a risk-averse position. It was discussed at ARF and committee members understood that there would be risk both ways, and using interest rate swaps is fixing the risk and considered best practice for Treasury management. Again, it's common for councils to use these instruments. However, as yet, we have not yet undertaken any new swaps, as market conditions are not sufficiently pricing in the level of interest rate cuts that would indicate our interest costs would be lowered if we execute. The PwC are continuing to monitor the market for opportunities to execute. I hope this has answered the second part of your question, Councillor Vincent.
Can I just check and see if I... So what it means is we're actually in a position where we're holding, waiting for the moment to strike when the interest rates are beneficial to basically repay one loan and take out another, as opposed to the expected. We would be taking, whatever we do, we're taking a risk. My expectation is, my limited understanding is that interest rates should be trending down over the next 6 months. But you're saying was sort of as a hedging exercise. safer to have the money sitting in a bank account against it, know what it's earning compared with the rate at which, if we were to convert that to, like the relevant interest rates were, it would be also definitely costing us money to do what we've done, but we're in control of how much it's costing us. Would that be a reasonable summation?
It would, yeah. So in answer to the first part of your question, no, we have taken out that $10 million loan now, ahead of paying it in October. We had to, because of the financial covenants that we are bound by with the LGFA, and also those covenants are aligned very closely to our Treasury policy. We've been out of policy, we've been acting outside of those financial covenants with the LGFA's knowledge.
And LGFA has an interest in knowing that and understand.
LGFA are our primary
supplier.
We've got a trust deed set up with them.
And that requires us to act in compliance with our Treasury policy, which they know.
Yes, yes. In terms of the second part of your question, so the loan is going to be costing us $395,000 in interest between taking it out on the 11th of March and the 15th of October. The interest receivable on the term deposit for that money that we have invested is $337,000. The net impact is $58,500 to us as a cost.
Without actually saying what the interest rates were. Yes.
For 6 months.
For 7 months, for the term deposit, it was 6%. For the interest rate cost, I think we had a margin of 5% on top of the floating rate, which I believe is 5.65 at the moment. PwC we're not in the business to speculate. And so we needed certainty, we needed to comply with our LGFA financial covenants, with the Treasury policy, and PwC, they're monitoring the situation. If they felt that it would be more beneficial not to take out pre-funding, we wouldn't have done. And they're the ones that they're our Treasury advisors.
It was also discussed audit risk.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And I don't want to redo the audit's work, but I just was wanting to get a proper handle on my own understanding. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Councillor No.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually looking for a marriage of Treasury policy and financial wisdom. You being a chartered accountant, probably you could juggle that. There's something called mirror thing. Like we are having a term deposit in hand, we're losing $59,000 for this 6 months, doing nothing. I mean, there must be a way out. Have we actually asked someone that there is a solution whereby we don't have to lose this 59,000? And also, as Councillor Vincent pointed and Councillor Howard pointed, there may be a risk in terms of lower interest rates coming. So we don't have to book our fixed rate today. Yes, thank you.
So through the chair, our debenture trust deed states we have to get into compliance with the ratios. And if we don't, we won't be able to borrow from LGFA in the future, as well as in the loans. So that is why we've had to do it.
But we are in defiance of the Treasury policy for a long time.
Yes, that was because of the fact that the government was going to take over Three Waters.
Okay.
Now the government isn't.
So 6 months. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further question? Oh, Julia, you haven't completed yet, have you?
Yeah, I was actually asking her because she is chartered accountant, sorry.
I think
I'm chartered accountant.
still presenting. Have you?
all I had left to say was if you.
Okay, so any further questions?
Yeah, that's a question. Yeah, for you.
Okay, you can stand down, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we move to Mover's statement, councillor Nair.
Chair, yeah, it's good to have some financial background if you're making or handling finances, and that goes true for even the national government, I would say. It helps. And I think being a diverse council with people from all areas, we should try to add value, even if we had held our hands are held because of treasury policy, and somebody can look at that exception in future. Thank you.
Alan?
Nothing further to add.
Okay, any other elected members wish to speak? Okay, let's have Mover's right of reply, councillor Nair.
Nothing to add, sir.
Okay, all those in favour raise their hands, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, we'll move on to item 5.3. And Jesse comes up for that one. Report. Can I have a mover for that, please? So Howard, seconder. Williams?
Oh, Williams.
Cool, so here we are discussing the actual financial results as at 31 March when compared to our budgeted figures. The biggest items to bring to your attention is the subsidy revenue being 3.7 million under budget and the activity costs being 15.7 million over budget, which is mostly due to roading. So part of the $15 million overspend in R&M for roading is due to the corrections signalled to you in last month's meeting, where we moved a lot of the emergency work costs that were originally recorded as capital costs through to operating costs. But there is an approved budget of 10.171 million for this, which you can see down in your capital expenditure project breakdown list under transportation. So this $10.1 million budget, which now won't be spent against, can in part cover this $15 million overspend in R&M. Also included in this overspend is close to 4 million in unsubsidised roading infrastructure. So my understanding is that our roading staff are waiting to bill NZTA for a lot of this work that relates to the state highway detours, and we will recoup a lot of this spend in subsidy revenue once this is billed. Once this is billed, this will improve the picture of how our subsidy revenue is tracking currently. I wanted to also briefly talk about the capital spend to give you a bit of context in here, and bearing in mind that we are coming to you next week on the carryover discussion. But if you look at the capital expenditure table, it has a balance left to spend of $62.8 million. So when we take out the 10 million that we're not spending in emergency works because we've spent it in operational, and we take out the 7 million, another 7 million that the NZTA stopped us from doing the Dargaville Transport Choices work, and about $23 million in carryovers that we'll talk about next week, that actually leaves us a balance left to spend for the year of 22.6 million. So that's about 7.5 million a month for the next 3 months. And our creditor spend for the month of March paid in April was 15.5 million. So I'm just trying to put into context that it is definitely doable to do what we are saying we are doing. But I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jesse. Questions, councillor Lambert? Councillor Nair?
Thank you. Through the mayor. Item this here, I look at, I'm just going to pick two, and you mentioned one, the Dargaville Shared Path. It's been cancelled, but it still costs us $303,000, is that correct?
That's what the numbers are saying, but I don't know what we do there. That's up operating.
And then,
So through you, Mr Mayor, on that one, the Dargaville Shared Path, you're talking about the Transport Choices program? Yeah, so so that's external funding, firstly, and we are coming back to you next week at a briefing with a possibility there for some additional work. with that extended funding.
No, what?
Work in that space with that additional funding, be on the agenda for next week.
Okay, then I look at another one, there's overall Tangaroa speed management plan. Why has that cost us almost $12,000? We haven't even started it, have we? Or is that just to look at it or?
Potentially need to ask the people that work in those divisions.
Yes. That's just sort of questions that alert to me, and I'm just wondering if that's administrative work that would be incurred a cost during council day to day.
I can come back to you and answer in an email exactly what those costs are if you like. Yeah. Yes.
Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Chair. Just a clarification first and then a question. So you mentioned 23 million is carryover and 22 million is yet to be done. So in all it's $45 million of work in the process as of today, right? Roughly.
Yeah, not really. So it's saying that we've got 8.8 million left to spend, but 10 of that will have already, most of 10 of all of that's been spent, but it's showing in our operating costs. So it's just a red herring, basically. It needs to be taken out of that 62 because we're never going to spend it there.
Right.
And then, yeah.
45 or 52, whatever you're saying, is yet to be spent. Just one question in terms of figures here. The Dagaville Manga by new library design planning, we still have 2 million just on design for that in figure here. Section report, page 18. It's just on design.
So through the chair, there's 1 million on data design and 1 million on mummified design.
Just on design, that's what I'm asking. Okay, thank you. Quite a sum on design, I would say.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
Just a question around some of the, and there seems to be quite a number of our projects around the storm protection and upgrades. There's Tatarariki, there's Hoanga, Bailey's Beach, storm renewals. When are those projects due to kick off, or is it part of the wider program and they're just working their way through, or is this purposely not being progressed for some other reason?
Through Mr. Mayor, Annan, are you going to phone a friend on this one? Are you out there? There he is. Oh, we can't hear you, sir. Do you have?
Got laryngitis.
Mr. Too.
Sure.
To help them out through the chair, the famous beach tours and boardwalk projects, they are underway.
Oh, no, sorry. No pause, stop back, bank urgent works, storm damage, Tatarariki, floodgate 5, environmental protection and enhancement, open spaces, where are we? Bailey stormwater renewals, Dargle stormwater renewals, Kaiwaka stormwater renewals, Mangawhai, it all seems to be sitting there, but not being spent.
Over to Annan, but I can't hear him.
Yeah.
Can't hear you, Alan. About the Ropo one, I do know a contractor has been engaged, so I think that will be very much underway shortly, but
And sorry, just because Alan can't speak, or sorry, maybe interpretive notes might be required, Alan, but
it's urgent works as well.
So through the project management office, we've received the business cases for all of those pieces of work, so they're all underway. If not through the planning process, they're getting into the design process.
So how come there's not a spend on the business case portion of the project then?
A lot of our business cases are developed in-house, so it might be a project spend.
Okay, further questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so I'll just go to the thanks, Jesse's here for the financial.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse. And just want to talk about building consents for a sec. Councillor Howard, you asked a question about the building consents in March being up to 64.
Thanks.
Yeah, read 64. But anyway, it's okay. So are there any clear reasons for this? So it was about an influx in applications for building alterations in fireplaces, actually, ahead of winter as well. So that's important. And believe it or not, we've got a number of sheds that we've sought applications for. And also 10 applications from Advanced Build to relocate, to put new relocatable cabins on Marae. Skewing the numbers a wee bit there.
It's not big house building.
No, in fact, I think the activities probably smaller activities happening.
And I'm sorry, you did right, it is 64.
So we still remain lower at number of applications in the building consent space than we did the year previous. The building consent values are lower than last year by quite some way, but they're tracking to the year before. You have a look, and that's on, I think, page 147.
But they're somewhat skewed due to inflation.
Yes.
Building products and costs.
Yeah.
Wash it up.
No, that's fine. And when we look at resource consents, we're down from 36 at the same period to 27, so that's still showing a reduction. The only other thing I'd like to point out is on page 152, and it's just a curiosity in the fact that the queries that are coming through our customer services team, land rates is up there as the biggest, which, you could put down to obviously impact of the rates, but also valuations. What's happening in that space? Long-term plan.
Just.
Councillor Noah.
Thank you, Chair. Just a clarification, this is $970,000 on Rangiora car park. I've not been to Rangiora. Is it in Rovai or where is it?
Oh, down on a river.
So the 1 million we are spending on car park, is it?
Chair, it's car park, it's toilet, they boats back up there and access the site. Actually making.
So it came, did it come to council for resolution?
Yes, it's in the budget. It's in the annual.
Oh, it's in the annual plan. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one question on page 152 of the deck, and it's consent March 24. And forgive me if we've covered this before, but what is the tipping point at which we would be involved in approving a subdivision plan of any number? So what is that tipping point of numbers? The biggest there is 33 lot subdivision, Brown Road, Tara. It's good to have this information in there now, but is there a tipping point where we would be involved?
No, I think this question was sort of asked last week, and it was about public notification versus not public notified.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah, that's the answer.
So we could have a non-notified public notification of 200 lots.
So no, it's more complex than that. And it's all around the rules in the district.
I figured that.
Yeah, it's probably a conversation we could take off.
Okay. Okay. Did have one other point. I can't find it now.
Okay, anyone else would like? I think we've moved to statements. Anyone else like to say something? Councillor Vincent.
I guess first thing would be mover and seconder, but I just wanted to share some information that's all of interest, that's all.
Sure.
Okay, well, just regarding one of the subdivision applications in that tables referred to by Councillor Howard, one closest to me, I suppose, that Franklin Road, Paparoa, was in response to a query from a neighbour. I found out that actually the consent has been granted, and it's actually 12 lots out of 3 titles. So, and that it butts on to the lifestyle village, which is rapidly being populated at present in Road. Just
Okay, well, let's move the statement first. We'll go to Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think that the information is good and we've had good debate about that. I want to compliment staff is that giving us good, concise answers on a lot of these pieces of information. They're trending information and giving us a good insights to where we're at and what activities there are. I don't think that there's anything further that I could add from there.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't really have anything further to add. It's just a good way for us to get information on consents of interest and other areas, which is always good to see, just to keep track of what's happening out there. So thanks to staff.
Thank you. Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's quite good to see on procurement front, things in progress. And Mangawhai Pahi Kaiwaka. I just for the being picky or whatever, I don't like the word the gender evaluation is complete. That's the last item, Mangawhai Community Park drainage, and award is imminent. Imminent is, I mean, I don't, it's a choice of words. It sounds like already worded, you know. Thank you. Yeah.
The other elected members wish to speak. Okay, movers right to reply. Councillor Howard.
Nothing further to add.
Okay. Yeah. So move this. All those in favour say aye. Raise their hands. Aye.
Aye.
Against. Motion carried. Okay, we move on to the final item on the agenda, which is 5.4 resolutions register. The executive team will be available to take questions. Someone presenting?
Mr. Mayor, you're going to get a mover and a seconder for.
Yeah, okay. Right, Councillor Nair has moved it. I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So nothing to specifically talk about, but happy to take any questions from the updates that are provided in there. If it is one of Anand, we're going to have to respond via email to you because he's mute at the moment, unfortunately, for some reason.
You have a question?
Yeah. All I want to know is maybe it's a good forum to tell us about progress on the things like we awarded to the wind farms and any further updates, because I don't see an item there. Because anything happening on that side will be of excitement and, you know, thing for us.
Which item number?
We're talking about, we agreed to with Mercury wind farms, and that was a year ago. We gave the consent. You know what I'm talking about, or you don't?
Is it which item on this?
It is on the.
So are you talking about the Kaiwaka Valley Trail and then the?
No, I am talking about that wind farm, not the Kaiwaka Valley Trail. The one we consented, we had a contract in place and was appearing here. And the final thing, any update on that?
Anna knows what is.
Is that on the?
After the track, you might referring to the PEX item, the.
Oh, is it?
By who?
Well, I'm just.
Okay,
it's not PEX anymore. It's done and dusted. So it'll be good to know how we are progressing, you know.
Oh, well, that's something you can ask and we'll get a reply for you at this meeting.
Thank you.
We'll move on.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to the movers right of reply, which is Councillor
Nair. Yeah, I mean, there are updates on few items and there are some update missing. Dagal water storage indicated business case October 2023. That is 6 months old. The status update will be nice. Otherwise, no, it's good to know the resolution register, and that's one thing, and same with the TK. If I remember, Mr. Morris, we had a discussion about that, and hopefully there will be some update on it. The TK person was there as well on the community development in Chikoper. It'll be good to know if something happened. Be kind enough to tell us.
Which, so you're speaking now.
So I'm talking about community development, and there is no update.
So you're making a statement here, you're not asking questions any further.
Oh, it'll be good to have in future updates. Thank you.
Second statement, councillor Williams.
I didn't second it.
You seconded it.
You seconded it. Sorry.
Just to, I'm not just saying.
It's on the previous one.
Recovered.
I have nothing further to add. Any other elected members wish to speak? Councillor Paniora.
Yeah, no, I was just waiting to input. Do we have an update on the waste to energy plant, which is on here? It says no further updates, but I believe you spoke to the paper and you said that there was a site in the Kaipara that you weren't willing to share, and I'm not aware of anything further than the last time that came to council was to move the notice of motion, and we've never had another discussion about it.
Look, I can answer that one. There's nothing to discuss at this point. I mean, if we have a proposal for a site in a waste energy plant, it'll come from the private sector, not from the council. At this point, I've got nothing to give you because there's nothing to tell you of any decisions. Right. Okay. Any further members want to speak? Okay, movers right to reply, which happens to be councillor Nair.
Oh, nothing to add, and it's fun and games. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, motion carried.
I passed 12.
So, this meeting is closed. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
And done. Well done. Yep.